Today's presenter is going to be Martin Tietz. Martin has been with Unify for over 15 years in various roles, including support engineer, product marketing manager, and director of product management. Martin is going to be joining us, I believe, from Germany today, where it is already early in the evening. It's a great opportunity and a real privilege to have someone with his background and experience with Team Developer presenting today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Martin to get started with the presentation and demo.
Thank you very much, Paul. And thank you all for joining us from where in the world you may be. So good morning, good evening, good midday, good night. I don't know where you are, but this fantastic technology allows us to gather now and have a look at TD 6.0. So today's topic, upgrading existing applications to Team Developer 6.0.NET. Here's what we are going to talk about. A quick introduction to what products and upgrade paths are available for TD 6.0 products, the new .NET build target options, a quick view on the architecture of the new product, and the main part is migrating existing applications to .NET. I will talk about external calls, ActiveX, COM servers, database connectivities, and we will also talk about a few restrictions and other stuff you need to know to be able to get your applications to .NET applications using Team Developer 6.0. I will also show you how to use .NET WPF controls, how to create and use .NET classes, and how to deploy TD.NET apps. This is a quick view on the Team Developer 6.0 products. As you can see, there's out of one product line in the past, which was TD 1.x to 5.2. We now have two product lines, which is basically a Win32 product line, which is TD 6.0 Win32, which is basically the same thing that you used to have with TD 5.1, 5.2, or even earlier versions. If you have been on TD 5.1 or 5.2, then getting to 6.0 Win32 should be very easy. You just load the code and it should compile immediately without changes, really. You can then make use of the new tab control, new Outlook control, which is called the Page Navigator, fantastic new tree control with a very comprehensive API, a new toolbar, Quick Mail, which is called ZAR Mail for SMTP, POP3, and HTML formatted emails, and TrueColor icons and images. This is what you will get when you have a GLS contract today. If you want to go to .NET, then you need to buy a new add-on product, the TD 6.0.NET add-on product, which has a steep discount for GLS customers. And this product will give you all the new .NET build targets as well, which is .NET WPF Desktop, .NET WPF Browser, .NET Class Library, and .NET ZAR Library. And I think at the end of this webinar, it will be quite clear what each of those are. The .NET version also includes the Win32 build target, so it's kind of an enterprise version that includes everything that we have for Team Developer at the moment. So basically, TD 6.0 is a new .NET language, just like C#, Visual Basic .NET, SAL, SAL. Team Developer has become a new .NET language. So our Team Developer IL compiler compiles code to the .NET CRL common intermediate language. And when that is done, when you double-click on an exe, then the .NET Just-in-Time compiler creates the machine code out of your application. So it's basically, the same as C# VB.NET, just a true 100% pure .NET compiler. And that makes ZAL a true new .NET language. So looking into the product, this is one of the important dialogues that you need to check out, which basically lets you decide if you create a Win32 application or a .NET application. All the things on the left side of that dialog are the things that have been available in past versions of TD, and new is the stuff on the right side. When you click on .NET application, then you can choose between all the other target build types that we have: WPF Desktop, WPF Browser, .NET Class Library, .NET ZAR Library. .NET Database Connectivity. We offer you backward compatible database connectivity. Database access continues to simply work. We we are actually using the existing SQL INI you have, and we support SQL-based, Oracle, SQL Server, ODBC, and OLEDB with this initial release. TD automatically maps to the appropriate .NET data provider, regardless whether OLEDB or native router has been used on Win32. So you don't need to make a head on these data access things. You just let TD do that on .NET for you. Regarding database connectivity, there's another very interesting feature or sub-product called dbpipe, which allows browser applications to access a central database without having to install database connectivity on the machine that executes the application, so your browser clients. That is very interesting to reduce the hassles that you have with configuring client machines. In this world where your users can sit anywhere in the world using the internet access your central applications, they will certainly very much like this, and of course all the administrators will like that very much, because you just have to have one central place for the database connection, and TD handles the rest for you automatically, and there's really nothing, not a single line of code needs to change for you to leverage this new dbpipe system. So you see here on the left side we have a traditional database server, whatever that is, whatever brand that is. In the middle we have that large button there, which is the Internet Information Server side that hosts the XBAP downloads. The XBAP downloads are basically the browser applications for the browser clients, and it hosts the dbpipe server, and the dbpipe server accesses the database client installed on the IIS side. And this database client talks to the database there on the database. The browser clients only use dbpipe to send SQL and receive answers back from the database. Like I do send an insert command to the database. That insert command gets sent to the dbpipe server. The dbpipe server does the insert into the database and gives back an OK that arrives at the browser client. All this works for Internet Explorer and Firefox on Windows. The TDIL compiler offers a seamless new experience. The new compiler and debugger are fully integrated into the existing Team Developer IDE. The performance is equal or faster than existing Win32 compiler. There's no change or no major change to the TD IDE. There are a few more things that you can choose, and depending on what you do, have to set in .NET. All warnings and errors displayed using existing output window when you use the new IL compiler. This one is important. If you have been at last year's DEF CON and not at this year's DEF CON, this is what has changed since a year ago. You basically get a lot more .NET power. Last year we said we won't support external calls. Now we do support them with a few restrictions on those, for example, like structures in the parameters. Last year we said ActiveX won't be supported, and then when we tried upgrading lots of customer applications to .NET, we found that everybody uses ActiveX, and the ActiveX code is tied so deeply into the applications that it makes total sense to support ActiveX on .NET, and we delivered that. So what you can do now is you can take your existing code that uses ActiveX controls and COM servers and just compile it to .NET without a single line of code change necessary on that area. We added support for .NET WPF controls. We will go into that in more detail a little bit later. Added support for .NET ZAR libraries, including GUI objects. This is to replace Dynalibs in the Win32 world. So that will help you to get your existing Dynalibs to .NET very quickly. And we added a lot of migration help, which is the migration or upgrade report, and then the define tasks and task report feature that allow you to organize your work better and to estimate what's necessary to get your application to .NET. The only thing we weren't able to deliver is .NET Web Services providing. That has moved to the TD6.1, and we will deliver that with the next release then. So here is the step-by-step upgrade guide. The initial step that you have to take, which I call step 0, is your application on TD5.x? If yes, this step 0 is nothing to do for you. If no, if you're still on 1.x, 2.x, 3.x, 4.x, then you need to migrate your application to TD6.0 Win32 first. And that means enabling Unicode. I think that's the major task there, enabling Unicode. Unicode, as you know, is a character format that allows to store most of the world's character sets, and such the amount of data or code buffers that are buffers that you need doubles, and that needs to be taken account in when you call DLLs and things like that. So there's some work that is necessary there if you're not on 5.x. So if you come to step 1 here, this is when you're really ready to go to the net. You would just go to the build settings and set the desired .NET build target. And initially you probably set it to .NET WPF Desktop, because that's the easiest one for the beginning. And when you do that, you will see this window come up. Do you want to run the upgrade report? And I would strongly suggest for you to do that, and I will also demo that in a minute. And if you press yes, then the compiler will actually execute, will actually compile your application and will not create an executable, but will create a report for you that lists a lot, that lists the things that you need to fix before you can get to the net. You can also say no and never show this dialog again. So step 2 is run the V6 upgrade report. Actually, the step is kind of 2 steps. The upgrade report initially will give you a high-level task list, like what things are really not compatible, and you need to fix those. And when you have fixed those, then you need to run this again for a more detailed report. Because if we would run the complete report at the beginning, you will get an endless, the issues that you need to fix first would create an endless amount of errors in all the code, and that would be very unreadable and unrealistic to estimate your effort on this. So this is a 2-step process. First, run the report, fix all the things you get in the report, and then run the report again for lower level things like, So in step 2.1, you can then compile the application and use the new convert to task feature to comment code that needs to change. We created a new kind of code comment that is a task. You will see that in a moment, where you can define a task. You can give it a name, and that task will include the compiler error message that it has thrown. And from that window that you see on that slide here, you see all the tasks that have been defined in your application, and you can print that. And if you want to have a paper list for that, but you can also double-click on any of the rows in that grid here, and you will go immediately to that code line to see what that is or to fix that. So a nice new tool that helps you organize your upgrading work. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Let me load an application, and what I will do now is, from the project menu, I will run the version 6.0 upgrade report. Then I specify a location for that file on my desktop, please. Now it's compiling the application and has created that report. Actually, doing that upgrade report gives you a lot more explanation on the errors that you get. It's not just the usual compiler error that you get when you compile the application, but there's a lot more documentation in there, in this file here, and explanations on how to change things. So here's a list of things that would need to get fixed in this application. For example, functions like ZAL DDE post. DDE is not supported on .NET. That is a technology way back from the 16-bit world, so before Windows 3.0 really, that made sense. But with all the new .NET integration, ActiveX, you don't really need that. And if you still have that, you need to get rid of it and do something else. So this is the report. And in this application, I do also have a number of tasks. On the edit menu, you have that new item, Find Tasks. If I click on that one, then I get the Find the Tasks window. Button, click on Find All Tasks. And you see I already have a number of tasks defined in this outline here. So there's a number of things to do, like low-level window messages. I can go to Print Preview and print that off now. Or I just do a double click and go to the definition of that. And you can see how the format of tasks is. There's a command line that contains task, and then the text for task that is included here. That's something that I can add. And then this is the code in question that that WM message doesn't really work on .NET, and one has to find something different to code what you want to achieve here on .NET. So let's again compile this thing here. And you see there's a number of problems that show up and numeric required. So I get this here, and then I can always do a right click on this and say I want to convert this to a task. And task, numeric, issue maybe. Done. And now I've created that task. If I now go again into Find Tasks, I hope I will see that one. This one, numeric required, is the one that I just created. And of course, if I double click on it, it will go into there. So a little bit on the task feature. Now I can work through one step by step through my task list and fix the things that need to be fixed to get this application to .NET. Step 3 is about table windows. You have to remove table window split features. For example, remove split windows with a second table window. You have to replace Visual Toolchest controls with new TD controls. For example, the outline list box with a new tree control. And then you have to replace quick tabs to the new tab control. And to do that, we have an executable that takes your existing code and converts that to the new tab control, which is called, the executable is called quick tab to tab conversion tool in your TD application directory. And if you are on 5.1 or 5.2, then you also need to look at your tab controls, because the new tab control is a true container control and not just a tab strip that shows the top tab, tabs only. But it really has container pages that you click and you can drop controls on. So you have to increase the size of the tab controls if you are on 5.1 or 5.2. Visual Toolchest migration. A large number of Visual Toolchest methods, functions are supported on .NET. And by the way, all the things that, all the supported, not supported functions, features, they are all listed in the documentation for TD 6.0. So that's the place where you want to look that up. Other Visual Toolchest things, supported visual classes are the CMeter, the vtcom.apl, and vtsplitter.apl for splitter windows. That's not table windows, that's just splitters for windows. For the CMeter, I will actually show you a nice demo later in conjunction with WPF and XAML. Step 4, in upgrading your applications to .NET, examine external function parameters and return values. You're okay if you're not using structures or window handles. Window handles is really something that doesn't exist in the .NET WPF world, and so you can't use those. That's something you need to replace with different functionality. If you're using structures, you need to change your DLL or change to a different .NET class method instead using the .NET Explorer. Maybe you're calling Win32 Microsoft Win32 things, and you want to replace that with .NET functionally. On .NET, you actually also can call the Active Directory of Windows, for example. Other limitations are certain data types that you pass, LP number, LP param, and so on. And you cannot call any SAL Win32 libraries. Those are the data types that are supported with external calls. Coming to step 5, Dynalibs. On the agenda slide, you saw that we did something new in .NET that we didn't announce last year, which is .NET SAL libraries. And what you need to do is you need to move Dynalibs to .NET SAL libraries, including your GUI elements. And what you do is you just open the code of your existing Dynalibs, you change the build setting to .NET SAL library, and you build that .NET SAL library. This will create a new SAL symbol file called a .axl file, and this AXL file that can then be included in your main .NET application instead of the APD. So basically what you need to do is remove the APD link in your main application and include the new AXL link in your .NET application, and that's basically it. New in .NET SAL libraries is that it allows you to export classes. You know that we are using the exported pragma to export things that need to be able to be called from the main application, and you now can also export classes. And this is how that looks in the TD IDE. If you go on File Include, there's the last menu item in the middle, symbol File Include. If you do that, then a File Open dialog will open with the .axl extension preset, so you can include .NET SAL libraries. So that should be very easy, really. Step 6. That's probably something for very old applications. If you're using custom controls, Win32 custom controls, those are not ActiveX. These are just not supported on .NET. Option 1, you can replace those with a similar .NET WPF control. And I would think that, custom controls by now probably look very, very outdated. Just to mention Battleship Gray or something like that. On .NET, you probably will get something much nicer looking and much nicer functionality, lots of more properties to be able to set and things like that. So wait a few minutes and you will see quite amazing things you can do. Which are really nice. So all supports theming, and now supports theming on .NET as well. And by the way, on TD60 Win32 we introduced a number of new themes as well. Step 7, compile your application. Now replace all unsupported calls, the compiler reports. In this case, if you're there shouldn't be a lot at this time, and you should be very close to get your application to .NET. Let's talk a little bit about other things, other limitations and things that are supported. Quick objects in general are not supported on .NET. Quick graphs are supported on .NET. Quick tabs can be converted to the new tab control. And quick reports are not supported on .NET. Reports in general are supported on .NET. And I will show you a sample of running a report from a browser application. Language restrictions. We talked about this for quite a while now. No loose usage of numeric types. So don't take a SQL handle and add 1 to the SQL handle, or assign a window handle to a file handle, things like that. But the new .NET compiler has stronger typing than we did have before on Win32. Probably not many used that, but some did, and that will throw errors. Probably not really hard to fix. There's no DDE, and as only a subset of WM low-level Windows messages supported. We support the most important ones like WM char, WM right button up, left button up, and things like that. But you certainly will probably see, if you use that a lot, you will see that some things are not supported there. And we can always extend that in future versions, of course. Other restrictions include that you don't have multiple inheritance of controls from two different form classes. In general, you do have multiple inheritance on .NET, but if you have two form classes and both form classes contain controls, then you cannot merge these into a new class. You cannot rename controls columns which are inherited from a parent class, and you cannot override functions based on the return type. So these shouldn't be things that occur too often or should be easy to fix. So now let's talk about some of the nice things that you can do here, like leverage modern and very rich .NET WPF controls. You can use free or commercial third-party WPF controls, or of course self-written WPF controls in TD.NET apps. Actually, we do also have a few own WPF controls that you can use in TD6.NET, and you can replace Win32 custom controls and ActiveX controls with .NET WPF controls. Earlier I mentioned that you can continue to use ActiveX, and that makes perfect sense if you're using desktop applications, where you might think to change ActiveX to WPF controls is probably in browser applications, because ActiveX controls require client setup, and they are registered to the registry. And in most cases, there's a setup necessary to do that, or a batch file that you need to run to register the ActiveX in the registry. And that's probably something you do not want to have with browser-based applications. So if you would, it's optional, and probably many people will do that for browser applications. So browser clients don't need to register ActiveX on their clients. So here are a few samples of WPF controls. In general, these look very nice to fantastic, I would say. If you search for WPF controls on Google, then you will get tons of things back. And there's several things like on SourceForge, there's very nice open source projects. And there's also a number of commercial providers of WPF controls that just create amazing things. And so you want to include things like that. You see that ribbon bar at the bottom right there? This is a Microsoft open source WPF ribbon bar, so you can use that one as well. So if you want to use .NET WPF controls, what you do is you place a WPF control onto the TD window, and you add a XAML snippet to properties. In the attribute inspector for a WPF control, you have the ability to add a XAML snippet. I can't go in very much detail today on XAML, but XAML basically is the underlying language that defines the user interface of .NET WPF applications. XAML is written in XML and defines every aspect of the layout of the application. And you can call any of the WPF control methods from the TD application. You can set and get any of the control properties and trap any of the control events. The screenshot that you see, I will actually show you a little bit later as a demonstration, is a Google Maps WPF control. That's free, available on the internet. You can download, use that in your application. And on the right side of that application, you see the new page navigator that has several panes, just like in Outlook. And in that multi-line field that's open there, you can enter addresses, and then we will go and look up that address with Google, and if it's a valid address, then Google will display the map for that address. TD has built in several WPF gauges. This one is the range gauge. The screenshot that you see, we have a radial, a linear gauge, range gauge, flat range gauge, and flat linear range gauge. And you can set a number of properties in the XAML snippet to initialize them, and then you can also control the behavior at runtime if you like. So you can display your sales figures using a gauge. You can display values that you retrieve from machines using gauges. So that's a quite flexible and nice way to display numeric values. So let's have a look at some of this. Google Maps. So this application basically has a form window which contains the WPF control, this guy here, and in Attribute Inspector you see that new XAML property. If I open that, and you see the XAML snippet, and the first thing in the XAML snippet, gmap control defines the name of the control, then there's a namespace and associated assembly if it's an external one. Actually, you can also include all of the .NET built-in WPF controls, like even a data field or a slider bar or a browser window and a media player window. So all this is built in WPF, and you can just put in the name of that control here, and you're ready to use all that. That's available in .NET. This dialog box contains the new navigation bar, the page navigator, and that contains several panes. Pane for searching the address, pane for zooming, pane for map type, and pane for events. Actually, this is kind of an event analyzer here that shows what events are getting fired when I use that control. And you see in the dialog box there's another custom control, the X slider. And if I look here, you see this one. And the name of that guy is just slider, and that means that's a built-in .NET WPF control. Just use that. And you can use, instead of slider, you could use media player or browser. And any other ones that .NET has built in. So on that multi-line field, actually when somebody enters any character there, we go ahead and send the text that has been entered into the multi-line field to Google using this method. So WPF invoke method, and then set current position by keywords. And if the return is GGeo success, then we show the map. And we set a certain zoom level for the map. So you see the invoke method function and the set property function. Set string property, set numeric property, set bool property, and we also have get string property, get numeric property, and get bool property. So let's run this guy here. I think it is set to WPF desktop. So, and now can go ahead and enter into that control anything. Let's take JFK. And you see it's going to John F. Kennedy International Airport. Google is quite smart. It recognizes three character airport codes in most cases. If you LHR for London Heathrow, doesn't quite get it, so you add airport behind it, and then it will get it. So London Heathrow Airport. So you can enter any address. You can set the zoom level using this slider bar, which you have seen is a .NET slider bar. And just go to any zoom level you want here. And see, here's Control Tower Road at the London Heathrow Airport. And in map events, this is what you see. We just register any event that gets fired by the control. We don't react on it, but we just put it into that list box so you see what what events get fired, and you can use that to analyze your WPF controls, how they behave, for example. So now let's run this application, go to the build settings, and run that as a WPF browser application. Don't save it. Now it gets compiled again with a build target of browser. and my default browser is Firefox that gets loaded now. So if I enter JFK here, it loads the John F. Kennedy International Airport, so the exact same application now running in a browser. You also have the map events here. If I move here, you see all the events that get fired. Let's close that, and let me show you that application another time in Internet Explorer, and now actually it is deployed to my IIS machine, to my IIS server running on my machine here. And this is the homepage that TD generates for that application, and from that homepage I can now run the application or download the certificate to, if I didn't do that before, to give full trust to that application. So when I press run application, it will check with the server if there's a new version available. If it's already downloaded, it will actually execute that one immediately. You've seen how fast that was now. It didn't download anything because it noticed there's nothing newer published on the server than on the client, than on what on the client is available. So now I have the deployed one, and you see exact same behavior. Get all the events. Pretty cool stuff. So what was the next thing I wanted to show? Gauges. WPF gauges. Moving range meter, another example that shows the one instance of a WPF control that is included with Team Developer now. And you see that range gauge here, and there's a number of message actions on some WPF events. So we have a new system variable, WPF event name, and using that you can react on any event of that control. And you see a SAL WPF get string property method here that's actually getting the value of the needle when somebody had clicked into that. Push button PB1, set string property, things like that. So let's run this. One thing I need to say is that compiling and debugging is a bit different than on Win32. To debug this green arrow that I just pressed, the debug go menu here actually creates an executable, because on .NET you need a executable to be able to debug the application. And when you press that debug go button here, we create a an exe application in debug mode, so there's a lot of debugging information in this, so they will be a little bit slower than when you compile that application in using the project menu and build. So right now that we are in debug mode here, and now you see that gauge. In that gauge you can define the green area, you can define the yellow area, you can define the red area. So this mimics a BMW diesel engine rounds per minute meter. If I start my engine, then it starts accelerating, then I can choose, okay, let's switch a gear up. I don't know if you can see the needle very well in WebEx, but the needle of the control is actually moving up and down here. Just one more thing, let me show you the example of this guy here, because that one quite nicely shows that you can initialize the control using XAML properties here. So here the range list, I said red is this area 4,800 to 5,200, yellow is this area, and green is 0 to 4,300. That's how you initialize such a control. With TD, you can call .NET assemblies from within your own style code. And that works for Win32 build targets and for .NET build targets. So you can basically go ahead and replace all the Win32 codes that you're doing to user32 or GDI32.dll and replace those with .NET equivalents, even on Win32. And they will continue to work when you change the build target to .NET. The approach to that is similar to the ActiveX wizard and Web Services wizard. The new .NET wizard allows you to select an assembly to call from SAL. And you do that this way. From the Tools menu, select .NET Explorer. and then you go through this process. First, you choose a GAC or assembly. GAC is the central assembly cache on your computer. That's basically all the registered assemblies are in a certain directory under the Windows directory, or just a certain file that you maybe have gotten from your colleagues that develop in C# and that you want to include. Depending on that, you will get a list of, in this case, choose the assembly from the GAC. When I choose GAC, those are all the assemblies available in the GAC. And then you choose the classes from this assembly that should be generated as a proxy APL. And the APL and AXL are created using the assembly name for you. And then you can include that new APL into your TD.NET application, in your TD application. This one works with Win32 and .NET, really. A few limitations here. No support for handling the events of the external assembly, and no support for calling methods or properties using the generics data type. Now let's have a look at the WPF applications. What that means to you is that with a click of a button you can convert your applications from a running desktop application to a .NET browser application. And that is an industry first, really. If you're going to do that with C# or VB.NET, then you would need to recreate a complete new project, create new top-level windows, move all your objects over there, move all your codes over there. So there's a lot of rework that needs to be done in Visual Studio to enable this. And TD just allows you to do that with selecting a different build target. In WPF applications, GUI definitions and code are separated. The GUI definition is saved in XAML files, and these XAML files describe the UI. XAML files, as I mentioned before, are files that are written in XML, and this XAML is fully customizable. TD60 includes a customized XAML editor for you, which is called KXAML, and the editor can be launched from the Team Developer IDE. You can also customize generated XAML. If you go on a window and do a right-click in the outline, you get a menu for create custom XAML, and this will be created in this path. .xaml will be a directory that will be created in the directory where that file is, where your application file is. This will then contain an application name subdirectory, and in that it will have the window.xaml file that you created. The customized XAML will be picked up by the compiler and used instead of the default at any time. And here's the custom XAML menu when you do a right-click on a window definition in the outline. You can see View Default XAML, Edit Custom XAML, and Clear Custom XAML. There's another very interesting XAML file, which is an application-wide file, which is called app.xaml, and this one can hold application-wide changes. You can actually apply custom themes to all forms. If all the TD themes aren't enough for you and you want a very cool looking black theme, then you can do this. And actually I will show you how to do this. You can apply custom styles to certain controls, and you can use app.xaml to create localized apps. So for example, you want to have an app that is being sold in several countries, in North America, in the UK, in France, in Germany, in the Czech Republic, I don't know where else. Then you can create localized versions quite easily, and I will show you that as well in a minute. Okay. Let's first do the localization demo. TD60 DEFCON sample app. Let me first run this application so you get familiar with it. That's the sample that I used at last year's DEFCON when we had the first few .NET things to show. And I think it's WPF desktop that it's being set to, so now it's compiling the exe and starting the exe in debug mode. Here's the running application that opens its windows. And on the customer, on this grid here, on this grid button, whatever you click here, if you get the paid invoices for that customer, and you see in this dialog that all the button items or all the button texts are in English, and all the complete dialog is really in English. Now, this application has been created with localization in mind, really. Let me show you how that looks in that application now. In that application, for example, there's this background text. Instead of having a real background text, it has a static resource definition for XAML in it. Static resource and then the name of the static resource, background 1. And if you do this, then it will actually pull the text that gets put in there from a resource definition file. And I think you can see that for all of these things here. You see static resource PB insert invoice. So now, if you want to go ahead now, we've seen that application running in English now. If you want to go ahead and change that to German, let's say, you just go into the .xaml subdirectory and then into the directory of the application. And in the app.xaml here, in the app.xaml file, you see application.resources and a resource dictionary, which is a file at the end, and that is en-en.xaml. Now let me change that to de-de.xaml for German. So that's everything I need to do. And if you look at the de.de.xaml file, then you see there's a key definition of background 1 and the German text behind it. And there's a similar file called en-en, which has the same text in English in it. So depending what I pull in app.xaml, TD will pick that up and compile that application this way. So now, to pick it up, I need to close TD and reopen it. So let's compile it again now. And now what should happen is that you will see an application that is at least in parts localized. Because I didn't do that for all the objects of this application, but for some. So you can see how that works. So now if I click on that same customer, you see in that dialog all the button texts are German now, and they have been pulled from the German resource file in XAML. See, other things have been translated as well here, so I did translate a few things in that dialog, really. So this is using XAML for localization. Now, CMeter demo. This one is really a funny one. CMeter, you probably know what CMeter is. It's a progress bar that can show the progress of an installation, progress of whatever you're doing there. This guy here. Progress bar demo. And really all there's a CMeter and a data field, and that data field on any edits sets the progress bar. So you can, in the data field, you can enter a value and then it will set the progress bar accordingly. Let me run that now. And this will give you the standard Windows progress bar, really. I can add a value like 1, 10, 40. So this is the progress bar. And now we do some magic here. That has been created by our XAML wizards in the company. And go into the .xaml subdirectory, and you see there that I do have a _app.xaml file. So in this case, it will not pick this file up because it doesn't have the right name. That way I excluded using that. And let me now enable that again change the file name to app.xaml and open it as Notepad++ to see that. Format that nicely. And you see what's in there. It's really, again, a resource definition. Progress template.xaml is a resource file that gets pulled in here. And let's open that progress template. And what this guy does, this thing here goes ahead and resets or overwrites the TD progress bar definitions and creates its own layout on top of the TD progress bar, of the CMeter progress bar. And what you see now is a lot of XAML, like color definitions, and from reading through that, you wouldn't be able to tell what that is, but it's actually a speedometer. So let me close that quickly, and now we go back to the application. Now basically what I've done, I've just enabled the app.xaml file to be pulled in when I use that application now. And the app.xaml file did pull in that resource definition that overwrites the CMeter layout, the standard layout of CMeter. Now let me compile this. And this is really the power of XAML, what you see here, which is you don't have a progress bar now. You now have a speedometer that, if you put it on, it goes one tick up. If you go to 10, it goes to 10. If you go to 20, it goes to 20. And this is really the kind of separation of the user interface and the code. This XAML is so powerful, it allows you to totally separate the user interface from the code. And you basically see the code is still, thinking there's a CMeter, but, the visual layout is totally different. And this is quite nice to see and to use, really. Then the theme demo, that goes further, even one step even more. Just the style demo here. The style demo, actually, this demo, if you look into the XAML directory, this demo completely creates its own application theme. It doesn't use a TD theme, a predefined TD theme. The XAML files here, if you go in here, define a complete theme for all objects of your team developer application. And there's quite a lot of stuff that's defined here. Actually, what you can basically do is also, again, search on the internet and, look for XAML themes and then adopt them a little bit to be themes for TD, really. So now, let's just look at this application because I think it's just amazing. Here you see the standard layout of an application that uses the TD Lunar Blue theme. And now let's look at this with a new XAML theme that is overwriting everything there. Here we go. And you see that black theme has been applied to button, checkbox, ready button, and so on. So that's a very cool theme that can be used. So that gives you a lot of customization opportunities for your user interface. So now quite exciting, I must say. So let's talk a bit about the deployment options. For desktop WPF desktop applications, there's a new menu item called Create Installer. And when you call that or when you open that, a wizard will create a setup MSI and setup exe file for you. You can configure certain things. This is how that dialog looks like. And it will take all the files that are installed in the directory of that application, well, all the files that are present in the directory of the application, including all its subdirectories, and create an installer for you. For browser applications, it's a bit different. There's a new menu item, Publish. for XBOP applications that should be published to an IIS server. And from that one, you can also enable the new distributed database client, which is the DB pipe client. And you just say deploy database proxy server there. What you do there is just provide the server name of your IIS server, username and password of that IIS server. You specify the publish location, so the directory on the remote system where that gets moved to. And you provide, if you want to provide your own application certificate, so you sign your application, and WPF browser applications always need to be signed. If you don't provide a file, we use our built-in certificate here. So let's look at a deployed application here. Actually, let me show you one more thing, really from TD itself, before we go to the deployed application. Build settings, browser, and then on the project menu, publish. Because there's some more things that have been added here, like generate a default web page. That is kind of the application homepage that you have seen before when I launched it from Internet Explorer. And you can also publish the report builder installer. I told you reports just continue to work in browser applications. To be able to do that, you need to deploy the report builder installer to your clients so they can run the install and execute the reports, because the reporting requires an ActiveX control being installed. Now I've done this actually, and let me show you again a deployed application here. Which is the DEFCON directory here on my server. And you see here, run application, then again instructions on how to install a certificate file if you don't have that installed yet, or download the report builder installer. That will enable your clients to download the report builder installer and execute reports. This is this part doesn't include any runtime licenses as well, just like it was with with reporting previously, but you need to install that ActiveX on your client machine. If I press run application here, then it again checks if there's a new version available on the server. There wasn't any, so it goes right away and executes that application that it has downloaded. And here's my application, that deployed application. If I click on a customer here, and you see in this case I had deployed the German version here, and if I click on print, then I get the print preview window just like with a desktop application. That's when you have the report builder client installed. And now I can just press print and print this to my printer. So everything available, including MDI, is printing that you are used from your desktop applications. So here we are, questions and answers.
This is your host, Paul Amelli, reminding you to use the Q&A button on your WebEx toolbar, marked with a question mark if you have any questions. We do have a few already coming in, so we'll go ahead and just give you a quick minute to formulate your questions and get those in, and we'll go ahead and get started. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get started with some of the questions here. The first one that we have that came in, I think, Martin, you might have already addressed this fairly early on in the presentation, but I'll go ahead and go through it. The question was, does Team Developer for .NET support the same database connectivity as the regular Team Developer desktop?
There are certain differences. We do not support Sybase and Informix yet on .NET. And on .NET also one difference is that for Oracle you need to have the Oracle 11 client available. You can't use the Oracle 10 client, but you can use the Oracle 11 client to access Oracle 10.
Great. The next question we have asks, can you retrieve any element value from the resource file on the fly, or just set text from the labels on development time?
I think both are possible. The samples I created, I just learned that is using them at development time, but there's also a way in XAML to use to get those at application runtime. Yeah.
Okay. And another question that we have coming in, this is a very important one that I think that you would also address as well. The question is the .NET deployment capability already part of my existing Team Developer license? And I think as Martin had mentioned early on in the presentation, the .NET deployment capability is an add-on module to your existing Team Developer license. So if you have any questions about that, be sure to contact your local Unify representative and they can tell you more about that. The next question that we have coming in asks, the DB proxy is usually included in the IIS, or is it an add-on?
Well, no, it's included in Team Developer. And actually, as you click on Deploy DB Proxy in that Publish dialog for WPF browser applications, this will get deployed on your IIS server. So it's included in TD and doesn't have any additional runtime cost associated with it either.
The next question that we have asks, does a report builder installer, is it necessary to run any reports?
That is necessary when you do browser applications, yes. But you just need to install it once. I mean, you once install it and then, forever it works.
Great. Another question is if you have an application in Team Developer 4.2, can you migrate directly to 6.0? This is the Win32 version, or do you need to migrate to Team Developer 5.2 first?
No, you can migrate. You can upgrade to 6.0 directly. You just have to do all the Unicode things that I mentioned, and that's basically it. There's a lot of material available on our website on doing that.
Great. The next question is, do you need to install Report Builder to run reports over the web, or will the installer just work in Windows? And is it possible to use it on Linux?
Well, no, that's an important question. Really, the type of application, the XBAP applications, they do only run on Windows. So they run on Windows using Firefox or Internet Explorer, but they do not run on Linux.
Great question. Here's a good question. Does Unify offer training? So Unify does offer formal training courses on Team Developer, and again, that's information that your local representative can help you out with if you want some more detailed information. And Martin might also be able to add a little bit to this, because I believe that Unify will be introducing online training here in the very near future as well. That might be an option for you.
Yes, exactly, Paul. We will pretty soon announce the Unify Academy, actually, which is an online training facility which is open and free for everybody to use. That will contain all the more in-depth training certainly than we did today, and will train you in all aspects of Team Developer development for beginners and also for advanced users that want to get their applications to .NET and things like that. So a complete training site that will be available by the end of this month.
I think that's going to be a great option for a lot of our TD users that have been limited to their travel. The next question coming in is, do the .NET apps just work on IIS, or can they be used in other app servers like Apache?
They can work from other servers like Apache. Basically, it's just a download from a server. But for the publishing assistant to work, you probably need to first publish it maybe on your local machine, and then copy that directory that you have published to your local IIS to the Apache server somewhere else in your organization. The one thing I don't know for sure is the DB pipe. If that works with Apache as well, that's something I would need to find out with my colleagues.
Great. Another question coming in is, are there any major feature differences between Team Developer 6.0 and Win32 and the 6.0.NET version?
Well, that's what we've gone pretty much through now. That the things that you need to fix that kind of define the differences. So in general, there's very few differences. You know, the visual controls are all there on Win32 and .NET, with very few limitations, like very outdated visual tool chest controls and things. Those won't work on .NET, but the rest pretty much works all.
Great. Well, if there are no further questions, we're going to go ahead and conclude today's webinar on migrating existing Team Developer applications to Team Developer 6.0.NET. Be sure to mark your calendars for upcoming developer conferences on December 1st in our Roseville, California headquarters, December 7th in McLean, Virginia. We're also doing a December 9th DevCon in Ottawa, in Canada, and December 10th in Pickering. And then I believe that we're also doing a December 14th Developers Conference in Mexico City as well.